Hey guys, this is Looney from BanishThatBelly.com. This is week 2 of my 6-pack abs in 6 months challenge. I posted my week 1 video last week, I suppose, or earlier this week. And for week 2, I thought what I'd got to do is concentrate on nutrition. Now, nutrition is quite important for this particular goal, because every expert I've read or researched or looked at, the consensus is the same. If you do not get rid of that belly fat, then there's no way you're going to ever get six-pack abs showing. In fact, one of my friends, put it aptly. I like the way he said it when he said 6-pack abs are built in the kitchen. Now, my biggest problem is I'm not too much into measuring stuff. I'm not the type of person who's going to be sitting down and counting calories and weighing, particular amounts of food. I'm more of a just slap it on and move on. Now, obviously, that's not the ideal way to go about things, especially if I want to get lean and if I want to succeed at this goal. So the way I think that's going to work best for me is just to actually have a general idea of what my nutritional requirements are going to be, and just try and approximate and work within those limits. There is no way I'm going to be, actually measuring each and every calorie and weighing all the food I take, to exact grams. That's just not my style. And as with any goal, if you want to succeed, you need to actually do something you're comfortable with. And so anyway, that's the way I'm going to be going about things. It's more of a gung-ho way of doing things, but it's worked for me in a lot of other areas, so I'm sure it's going to work for me in this area as well. Now, I think I've already mentioned the importance of nutrition. Basically, if I can't get rid of that belly fat, then there's no way I'm going to achieve my goal. The method I'm going to be using to get my 6-pack abs is solely based on building more muscle, adding muscle to my frame. The idea is the more muscle you add, the more fat you burn, because muscle, in just the way it operates, just by contracting and then relaxing, and also the muscle weight itself tends to burn calories. And as we all know by now, the more calories you burn, the leaner you get. So that's the whole idea of that's my plan. Just hit the gym, build muscle, and control what I eat. And hopefully within 6 months I'll be sporting a nice set of 6-pack abs. Now, the main components of nutrition are your carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Carbohydrates are basically your fuel source. They're broken down into sugars, but at the same time also they're, I think, one of the more dangerous macronutrients, because a lot of that excess sugar, which they're broken down into, is what eventually gets turned into fat. I recently came across a YouTube video. You might want to check it out yourself. I think it was Sugar, the Bitter Truth. Scary stuff. But basically, the idea is to limit the amount of sugar you take in, and carbohydrates are a big contributing factor to sugar in your bloodstream. For this particular challenge, what I've done is I've eliminated as much sugar as I can from my diet. I used to have sugar in my tea and coffee, and right now I'm actually trialing having coffee and tea without sugar. It was horrible at first, but I'm actually getting used to it. In fact, as I sit here, doing this presentation, I'm actually sipping, a nice cup of green tea. It was absolutely horrible when I first started taking it, but I think I've gotten used to it now, and it's actually not that bad. Just have myself a sip of it. The other thing I've done as well is I've limited the amount of white carbs that I take in. I've started focusing more on eating things like brown rice, brown bread. Basically, white carbs tend to be easily processed. They get processed very quickly, result in sugar spikes because they get digested much quicker than their equivalent brown versions. So that's what I've done when it comes to carbohydrates. I've tried taking them totally out of my system, but of course it can't be helped. I mean, every once in a while I will have some white carbs. I mean, I can't totally avoid potatoes, and sometimes a slice of white bread. I mean, there's not really, I can't really take them all out, but I do try and limit them as much as possible. Carbohydrates basically give you 4 calories per gram, so that's one thing to take note of. The other thing I'm going to move on to is proteins. Proteins are the main building blocks of the body, and because my program is primarily based on building muscle, I think proteins are going to be the most important macronutrient I need to focus on. When it comes to proteins, what I'm doing for this particular challenge is just making sure I have protein in every meal I eat. The protein can come from eggs, meat, nuts, wherever there's a source of protein. I'll just try and make sure that I always add that in every one of my meals. And so far so good. I mean, this last week, touch wood, I think I've been quite good. I've had protein at every meal. I've limited my carbs. So that's all good. Proteins provide about 4 calories per gram. So again, you just need to take note of that. The last macronutrient I'm going to look at is fats. Now, contrary to the common belief, I mean, fats don't really make you fat. I find it interesting, you know, every time I walk into a shop and you see all these low-fat vision foods. They taste atrocious, and what makes things even more laughable is it's not really the fat, you know, that's the problem. It's more the sugar. But I mean, there's lots of different ideas and all these things floating around. When it comes to fats, I mean, evidence that fats aren't really bad for you is provided by, if you go through Mike Gary's Truth About Abs program, he's got a section on nutrition in there, which I think is pretty fantastic. I mean, out of all the stuff that I've come across, you know, on nutrition, I think he's the best. And a lot of what I've learned here and a lot of what I'm talking about actually came from the Truth About Abs program. Because I mean, I've read quite a lot, but his stuff it's nicely put together, and he covers almost everything you need to know about nutrition, and he does it in a very understandable way. And again, like me, he's not an advocate for, you know, restricting things too much. He's more for the flexible approach, you know, when it comes to what you eat. What else can I say about fats? I mean, fats, I mean, they are basically needed in the body. They form part of the hormones that you have. I understand that most of the brain is made of fat. I think nervous tissue as well. It's good at shock absorbers for the body. And it's also good for the delivery of fat-soluble vitamins as well. Fats give you 9 calories per gram, which is about twice the amount of calories that carbohydrates and proteins give you, so they're quite calorie dense. So that is perhaps the thing you need to take note of. I mean, for the same amount of protein or carbohydrates, you're going to get way more calories from fats. But I'll repeat again, fats do not make you fat. Just because you're eating a lot of fats doesn't mean you're going to be fat. I don't know if I mentioned that, I don't know if I finished that train of thought I had. Mike Gary was actually talking about fats, and he was talking about the Eskimos. And apparently, I mean, they eat their diet is just composed mainly of fat. They eat a lot of whale blubber and, you know, all fatty stuff. And at the same time, again, you've got some tribes in Africa, like in Kenya, for example, where their diet is also mainly composed of animal fats and stuff like blood and the like. But these populations are actually pretty lean. They're quite fit and healthy and don't suffer all the heart disease and all the ailments we seem to have down here in the Western world. So that should be evidence enough for you that fats aren't really your enemy. And not saying that I'm not actually saying carbohydrates are your enemies either, but you do better, by watching your carbs than watching your fats. Personal opinion. Anyway, so now that I've covered the macronutrients, even though it's quite a short summary, when it comes to the ratios, again, I'm going to refer back to Mike Geary's Truth About Abs program, because I think he put it nicely. The majority of experts out there advise that when it comes to protein, you should have at least 1 gram of protein for every pound of body weight. Now, this I actually learned from the Truth About Six Abs program. If I'm actually about 190 pounds, I think it should be about 192 thereabouts. If you look at the week 1 video, you'll see my starting stats. So assuming I'm 190 pounds, that means I should actually ideally be having 190 grams of protein per day. Now, as I mentioned before, if you come down here to proteins, you find that proteins are 4 calories per gram. So if I'm having 190 grams of protein per day at 4 calories per gram, if you multiply 190 by 4, what you get is 760 calories. Now, 760 calories, if you divide that by my resting or my maintenance calorie level, which again I'm going to refer to Mike Geary's Truth About Six Abs program, simply because a lot of his stuff, I remember straight off the top of my head. He's got a calculator that actually helps you calculate, what your metabolic rates should be. And I think when I last used it, my normal rate was, I think it was pegged at about 2,300 calories per day. That's what I needed. So for me to actually get lean and lose my belly fat, I would need to actually restrict my daily calories to about 2,000. I think when I worked everything out, it was I needed to stay within 1,600 calories and 2,000 thereabouts. But for simplicity's sake, I've just put myself at a maximum of 2,000 calories. Now, assuming that I'm supposed to be taking a maximum of 2,000 calories per day, if the proteins I've calculated so far come to 760, as a ratio, that turns out to be about 40%. So apparently 40% of my calories should actually be coming from protein. And the reason why I actually like the way he's done it is because I agree with him. I think the main thing we should be focusing on rather is proteins rather than carbohydrates or fats, because as I mentioned before, what I'm actually doing is I'm working on building muscle to actually increase my resting metabolic rate so that I can burn more fat. So if I'm working on building muscle, that means the main thing I should be focusing on is the stuff that builds muscle, and what builds muscle is protein. So that is why I feel his way of working things out is actually, it more aligns with the way I'm thinking. So by those calculations, I've come to the conclusion that I need 40% calorie intake from protein. That leaves 60%. Now that 60%, for my challenge, I've just decided to split it equally between the carbohydrates and fats. So I'm going to be having a ratio of 40% protein and 30% fats and 30% carbohydrates. But obviously that's not fixed. It's not like I'm going to be sitting there and actually weighing out my carbs and my fats. As I mentioned before, I just slap everything together. So like on my plates, I've just got to approximate, that I've got a bigger portion of protein, and then about equal amounts of carbohydrates and fats. And I just like to keep things simple, and I think that's going to be the best way for me. Now, when it comes to the number of meals, an interesting thing I came across was the thermic effect of food. Now, apparently, you actually burn calories when you eat. Now, I thought that was pretty nifty. Can you imagine that? You're actually having a workout every time you eat. Now, it only makes sense. If you want to burn more calories, then you've got to eat more. So how do we do that? We actually increase the number of meals we have a day. Now, a good amount to go for is 5 meals, I think. I mean, if you look at your traditional setting of 3 meals a day, you know, breakfast, lunch, and supper, all you have to do is just reduce the quantities you have at breakfast, lunch, and supper, and then put in, you know, a couple of meals in between in between your breakfast and your lunch, and in between your lunch and your supper, and that way you'll have 5 meals a day. 5 meals a day, that means, you know, you kind of having 5 workouts, because every time you eat you're actually burning calories. So that was something interesting I read about. But in addition to that as well, there's by actually breaking and having 5 meals, you actually have your levels sustained at a more regular level, rather than having sugar spikes. You know, every time you have a big meal, you know, everything is kept nice and level throughout the day, and that's a good way to approach things. Anyway, this was meant to be a very short presentation. What do I have here on concluding ideas? Oh yeah, the reason why I've got Brandon Bouchard up here is Brandon Bouchard is quite a prolific author, and he's recently come out with a program called I think it's High Performance Academy. I'm not exactly sure, but I've been reading a lot of his stuff, and when it comes to nutrition, again he had quite a number of good ideas, and one of them was to do with the amount of greens on your plate. He advocates for having at least a third of your plate, you know, being green. So basically, I think a third of your plate should be vegetables. And again, as I mentioned before, I mean, I'm not someone who's going to be sitting down and just measuring stuff, but that there is also another nice, easy visual representation for me. You know, when I have my food on my plate, I just know that as well as having it mainly consisting of protein, I should also have 1/3 of it being green. So that's one thing I've also started incorporating. Drinking lots of water, that's just basics. I mean, you just need to make sure you drink as much water as possible. I think I also got this here from Brandon Bouchard, that the only thing you should ever be drinking anyway is water. I've got your arguments against juice, because a lot of people think juice is healthy, but a lot of juices out there are just laden with sugar, and I think I mentioned before that the sugar is pretty dangerous, especially if you're trying to, you know, get rid of belly fat. Sugar is the last thing you want in your system. So I've pretty much laid off juice, and I'm drinking just a lot of water. Processed foods. This again came from Mike Greer's Truth About Abs program, and I think it also tied in with fats, because one problem a lot of people have is not knowing, you know, which are good fats and which are the bad fats. And I like the way Mike Greer put it. He puts it simply: just look at foods that are in as natural a state as possible. You know, if they're as natural as possible, then they've got to be good for you. But if they've been processed, then likely it is very high that they're very bad for you. So generally, with everything, processed foods, they tend to be laden with sugars. You know, they don't have enough nutrients in them and things like that. I put on here potato idea because I was reading a book, I think it was Guerrilla Workouts, and this guy actually put in a case study showing the difference between just a whole jacket potato in its natural state versus potatoes in their processed state, i.e. chips or crisps. And oh, it was really scary. I mean, the amount of calories you get from the processed food, it's like, whoa, way over the top. But at the same time, you don't even get any nutrients. It was I'll go into that in more detail, you know, in another presentation. But basically, the whole thing is to make sure that you try and have foods in as natural state as possible. One other thing also is making sure to have an overfeeding day. Right now, for this last week, I mean, I've been maintaining myself at my 2,000 calorie max. So I've been operating at a calorie deficit. Now, the problem is the body always adjusts to everything that's going on. So now, for the last almost 6 days now, I've been working at a calorie deficit. So this will start triggering. There's what they call the starvation hormone. I believe it's called leptin. It's once those levels start decreasing in your body, the body starts thinking it's starving, and you find that your belly fat loss starts slowing down because the body thinks it's in starvation. Well, it is basically in starvation mode, so it starts preparing itself by storing more fat. So every once in a while, you need to overfeed. And that's primarily just to boost up leptin levels. I've decided that my overfeeding day is going to be Friday or Saturday. Friday I've reserved for family time, so I'm going to be spending a lot of time with my boys. So I think that's going to be the time, you know, to gorge out on pizza and all that kind of stuff. You know, maybe go into 2,500 calorie days. Even though it is an overfeeding day as well, I think I should point out that it doesn't mean that you undoing all the gains of the week, because overfeeding for that one day, if you calculate all the calories, like say for example I've been running at a calorie deficit of about 300 calories per day. If my normal rate was 2,300 calories and I'm stuck at 2,000 calories for each day, that means that I've got a deficit of what, it's 300 calories by 6 days, which gives you what, 1,800. So 1,800 calories. It's a 1,800 calorie deficit. If one day, I mean, I overfeed by 300 calories, I still have a calorie deficit of over 1,500 calories. So it is actually crucial that that gets integrated. Anyway, this was just meant to be a quick presentation, just to catch up and, you know, tell you what's happening for week 2. This is what I've been working on for week 2, just my nutrition. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, when it comes to nutrition, there's just so much out there, and trying to make sense of everything is pretty tricky. But I think with what I've got here, I mean, I should be okay. As with everything, I mean, I'm going to be tweaking and testing as the weeks go by. So later on, if I find what I'm doing right now is not working, I'll obviously adjust, and we'll see from there. Anyway, I hope you like this presentation. It's pretty short, I know, and I haven't really prepared that much. I'm a great fan of Boy's Law, you know, speed of implementation. If I think of something, I just do it there and then. So I just thought of quickly, you know, just doing this presentation. So I never really made too much effort at preparing it. Hopefully, future ones will be better prepared. But anyway, we'll see. For me personally, I mean, the main thing is the idea, what's happening behind it all, and just getting that out as quickly as possible. So hope you liked it. Hope you learned something. If you did, I'd appreciate a few comments. You can always find out more again from my website. Just pop over to BanishThatBelly.com and see some of the articles there. I'm sure you will find something that could be helpful or beneficial. Anyway, that's it for now. I'll catch you another time. Cheerio.